Hello, GitHub universe. My name is Cassidy Williams and I'm the CTO at Contenda, and I am so excited to talk to you today about team knowledge sharing. So, what if someone on your team suddenly won the lottery? What if they won the lottery, signed out of the team chat, and you never heard from them again? Well, first of all, good for them. I'm happy for them. But would your team be in trouble? Would all of their knowledge go out the door as they sailed off into the sunset on a really nice boat? Let's talk about team knowledge. As your teams grow, so does the collective knowledge that you built together. It can be challenging to manage all of that knowledge and document it all and create new ideas without reinventing the wheel and bringing your team members into your space to add even more knowledge to that pile. Writing down ideas that you want to propose, meeting minutes, or even notes about conversations with teammates is important for remembering what happens throughout your day. It's a way of not only just committing pen to paper or text to screen, but also committing attention to the topic that you're jotting down. Countless studies, I'm not going to talk about all of them here, countless studies have shown that some physical process needs to be completed to form a memory, which focuses our attention in our brain to remember something better. When you want to remember something, you want to write it down. Ideas and creative concepts snowball. They grow. When you want to understand, you have to translate ideas into your own words. The more you write things down, the more you start to develop a good knack for thinking up and tracking your ideas. My own story is keeping a little brainstorming note with me at all times. I have this little notebook where I write things down all the time, whether they're product ideas or joke ideas, stories. And ever since I started doing this and built that habit, my jokes got a little bit funnier, my stories got more engaging, and my product ideas just got a bit more refined. And it was really, really useful for me because as I started writing more, jotting more down, I started to realize that my ideas were just getting a lot more clear and they were building off of each other. Now imagine if your team developed writing things down as a habit together, not just you. Think of the ideas that you can come up with and iterate on that as a group. By just keeping a record of the work that you've already done, you could do a lot. This is the kind of creative work that's what we need to push for as developers. It's easy to get bogged down with processes and meetings and bike shedding, but if you collectively work together to catalog and ideate amazing features and products and even bug fixes, awesome things could happen. Now, on the other side of the note-taking coin, searching amongst your team notes and documentation can be a challenge. They tend to pile up over time. Knowledge sharing without structure is very rarely helpful. It's hard to remember exactly what you were thinking or the exact words or phrases that you were using when you originally jotted down the ideas, who originally said those ideas. We just lose that essential context way too quickly as humans who have lives outside of work and tasks to do throughout the day and just a lot of things on our minds. That being said, thinking too much about making your team notes searchable can bog you down as you're writing them. If you have a gigantic template where you're like, oh, we need to fill out every single thing before we can write down ideas, this isn't productive. Ideas are fleeting, and they can be very, very powerful over time if they're captured well. But once again, if you're focusing too much on how you'll organize them as you're writing them down every single time, you'll lose what you want to capture slowly but surely. The key is to have a predictable system for your notes. There's a helpful principle from the book How to Take Smart Notes by Sonke Arons. Standardization enables creativity. You don't want to spend unnecessary energy just trying to find the knowledge you need as you're brainstorming with your team and applying decisions. You want to have an easy-to-navigate, predictable system for your notes. When you have common formatting and organization and a shared understanding of how to document things and quickly, your team can think and reflect and hypothesize and discuss, test, share more together. And that's the creative work that really matters. There isn't any silver bullet system for your notes. There's no one tool that will work, one thing that will make everything work for you. The way your team decides to take notes is up to your team. On one of my previous teams I worked on, we loved having brainstorming sessions together. We would do mob programming, we would come up with cool ideas, we would regularly get on calls and hash out a concept that we thought might be interesting. We would think about big ideas for new projects that we could build together. We would even just talk about different solutions for problems that were on our doorstep and upcoming deadlines. But occasionally, as we wrote down what happened in those meetings, we ran into issues with consistency because we wouldn't always write down what happened, and not everyone had the same takeaways. We also ran into issues with not knowing who was taking notes because the same people would always take them, and if they were out, the notes just wouldn't be taken. And we had issues with finding old notes when an idea was on the tip of our tongues, but we didn't know where to find them. For us, developing our own system for taking care of notes was really important. For throwaway notes, we made a scratch pad section of our Notion where we would jot things down that weren't fully fleshed out, where we could just kind of put things on paper quickly and then pick it back up later. We also developed templates for ourselves where for each type of meeting, they were all linked back in a directory of sorts with a table that allowed us to search by date, by type, the people involved. And we also made a rotation for who would take notes in a given meeting. It was clear on our calendars from the start who we could hand off the responsibilities to as changes arose. This system worked for our team super well. Our expectations were set, our output was more clear, and we were honestly just overall happier with how our meetings went. Because we had more clear notes, it meant that we could manage our time better in that not every meeting had to be required for us to get the full context of what we needed to know. This system may not work for your team. Once again, the way your team decides to take notes is up to your team in the end. As long as there's a shared buy-in in which everyone uses the same approach, that is ultimately what matters. My biggest learning around notes in general, with my previous team system and my own notes, is that they're not etched into stone. You shouldn't treat notes as if they're permanent, precious pieces of information. Notes can be composed together, they can be moved around, they can be changed, they can be evolved over time, just like the code that you write. You can build off of them and iterate to make your ideas better. This is something that, once again, I do with my own notes. I love the concepts of linking your thinking and second brains as a place to write and move and grow my own personal notes. I use a software called Obsidian for this. There's countless others like Roam and Bear and Notion, etc., that lets me backlink between notes and create a sort of wiki for myself as I write. Not all of my ideas are great. Some get stale very quickly. But as I've written more and more over time, some good ideas have bubbled and risen to the top. Some side projects where I jot an idea down and then end up revisiting it over a year later as I'm searching for other ideas, end up growing with my own new knowledge and concepts I've thought about, and whole products and courses I've made have come to life where they were literally years in the making because of my notes. All that being said, write things down and don't overthink. You can always go back later with refinements and new ideas and even grammar changes. Don't overthink it, just write things down. There is a system called the PARA method by the Forte Labs organization that might be useful for your team. It's broken down into 4 sections. First of all, there's projects, where project notes are tasks linked to a goal with a deadline. These could be app mockups, product specifications, or a blog post, for example. The A is area of responsibility, which is a sphere of activity with a standard to be maintained over time. This could include professional development, direct reports, products, and just writing blog posts or something. The R is for resource, a topic or theme of ongoing interest. This could be project management, linting notes, teammate information. And then that last A, archives, which is inactive items from the other categories. So projects that are completed or are inactive, areas that you're not as committed to anymore, resources you're no longer interested in. You don't have to follow these rules perfectly. This is just an example system, but it's a good initial set of guidelines that can be helpful for your team as you establish your own best practices for yourselves. Enabling your team's strengths in how they organize and understand information is particularly helpful as you establish a knowledge base for yourselves. The software you use does not matter for this system. This could work in Evernote, it could work in Dropbox, it could even work in a GitHub repo. It's about the way that you use it, and once again, having a shared buy-in from everyone. So what about that lottery winner? You know, it might not be a lottery winner. It might be something way less exciting that pulls your teammates away. If and when that happens, and it inevitably will, when someone decides to switch jobs, when someone wants to work on something new, or even if someone needs to go on a well-deserved vacation, would your team be able to manage? Would anything be in jeopardy? Would your project be at risk? The risk of not writing things down in a searchable way means that the knowledge with that person could go away, and it happens all the time. Establishing a culture of documentation where your team has a shared system of both how and where they should write can help with this. Now, you don't want to become data hoarders necessarily. It's a very good thing to regularly audit your notes and your documents as being out of date or archivable. But having the context available to anyone who might need it will pay dividends over time. Moving forward, in general, it's very easy to underdocument everything because there's simply too much to know and things change too often, or overdocument everything and then every single page turns into a deep rabbit hole of connecting information. Finding that balance is important. A culture of healthy documentation may take some time to develop, but as the phrase goes, the best time to start was yesterday and the next best time to start is now. Thank you so much, GitHub Universe, and for watching.